Good afternoon. This is Voice Notes 002 Captain's Log. Should have started with Captain's Log. We have a lot to discuss, or basically, I have a lot to discuss. You guys are going to listen. And if you guys want to, you guys can always leave your thoughts and replies in the voice notes replies section right underneath the voice notes. And if you hear anything in the background, it is because outside they are doing construction because they've been doing construction for a while. So you might end up hearing that. You might end up hearing my fan, but I don't know. But we have a lot to discuss, and it's going to have the overarching theme, hopefully, of online, social media, the algorithm, and just sometimes me getting into my own head, me having these doubts and stuff like that, even though yesterday was a very good day in terms of being online and not caring about the Twitter drama of the two main biggest guys in the wrestling community that don't really elevate the wrestling community at all. You guys know who they are. And as you guys know, I really do not like drama. I really don't. I don't mind like reading about it, going down rabbit holes about it. Definitely not getting dragged in if I don't need to be dragged into it, unless I need to like protect my name, protect my brand, protect my community to an extent. Um, if I don't really need the headache, I'm not really joining in. But the back and forth was over who has creative control and who doesn't have creative control. We all know Mercedes Monet has creative control. We all know that wrestlers have creative control to an extent over their characters, over their storylines. They are able to say, hey, I don't want to do this, or hey, I want to eventually become champion, and then maybe make a convincing argument as to like why they should become champion. But like this really age old he said she said bullshit like really gotta stop. Like if people could just be honest over there in All Elite Wrestling and all of the minions that follow All Elite Wrestling, you know like they just follow them. I want to say some other stuff, but I'm not going to say some other stuff, so I'm going to hold my tongue. But you guys can fill in the blanks if you guys want to. That's totally up to you. But you know, all of the blind following that still happens, the people that are like, you can't talk bad about AEW, you can't like do this, you can't do that. Well, who are you to tell me or tell others what they can and cannot do? By the way, I wasn't gonna really start this off with coming in hot like that. I really wasn't. But just follow me for a second. If AEW and everybody that defends AEW, and even that includes the wrestlers that come out and like talk out their ass, if they could just be honest, I think that AEW could do better business and really start reaching the heights in a very medium kind of progression to be underneath TNA. Huh? Huh? What do you guys think about that? Technically, it should be like, a medium approach to be underneath WWE. Now, to TNA's credit, ever since they decided to turn themselves around and become a different type of wrestling program, a different type of entity, we definitely perceive and look at TNA in a whole nother light, right? So like TNA, they're in their own lane, and I'm very, very happy they're in their own lane because at one point in time, I was just like, I don't even know they're gonna survive because they kept doing the whole poking the bear, WWE bad, WWE this and whatnot. But they turned themselves around. They turned around their image. They are perceived different. They feel different. They feel like a company that you want to go and support and be like, hey, what are you guys gonna do next? Who are you gonna sign next? Are you guys gonna go get a TV deal? Like we're here rooting for you. And that's just because they became honest after a while and they were like, yo, we got to do our own thing. Like, fuck all the noise. We got to do our own thing. And that's what I would want for AEW. I would want AEW to come back around and be like, hey, let me be honest with you guys. We have so much baggage that we're carrying around and we're so sorry. Let's start with a clean slate. And then also, rein in, no pun intended by Roman Reigns, but rein in the wrestlers who want to get the brownie points for clowning on people they deem that they hate when they don't know them personally and will never have a conversation with them, to be like, where is your mindset? Do you really act like this offline off of Twitter? But nobody will want to have that conversation with somebody. Nobody does. The moment that they see you online and they see that you're loud, you talk shit, you go after both like men and women, you don't know how to frame things, even though like that's probably not what you meant or how you want to say it, but you do it anyway because the internet allows you to play a character. But then when you're offline, you're probably not playing that character. So my point is that the wrestlers, Ricochet, because he's the one that talks the loudest, basically goes after people without trying to be like, hey, let's have a private conversation. I want to know if you really truly like this offline. And that should be worthy of something, because we shouldn't be judging people based on the characters that they want to portray online, because they don't believe in the stuff that they do online. The things that you see online, they really don't believe in it. Like, I bet you, I'm going to be generous to be like, it's an 80-20 thing, okay? It's a toss up of like 80% they don't believe in that stuff. They only do it because it feeds the algorithm and it basically gives them brownie points, and the wrong kind of community and the wrong kind of audiences are attracted to that, because people want to live vicariously through you. And if you're saying all of the right stuff that checks all the right check boxes, and you're like, okay, you believe in the same thing as me, now give me money, this is what happens. It becomes a vicious cycle of like, I'm going to play this character, I'm going to play it up, and people are going to give me money, and that's how they're going to go about, their content creation lives, even though it's very low effort, have a reactionary kind of content that doesn't bring any value, that doesn't elevate conversations, that doesn't elevate friendships, that doesn't elevate networking, because communication is very, very important, but nobody understands exactly what communication is ever since we got so deep into the internet era. Because we got so deep into the internet era, it's like, how do we communicate again? People are so afraid to meet each other in public that they automatically think that you're the bad one, when you're just like, I'm a human being just standing here and breathing just like you, you know. And then they all get scared and shit. They don't want to talk to each other in public, but will talk shit online. And then in the same breath will say that, like, oh, don't judge me for how you see me online. Well, weren't you just cursing out like somebody like the other day, and then, not cursing out somebody, or, doing something stupid? Like, how can you not, when you have a consistent pattern of being an asshole, or a consistent pattern of being very aggressive in the way that you talk and you demand and you want people to really like get on your side, but it's not really happening, so you kind of keep pushing and pushing the agenda, and then when they block you, you're like, that's a victory for me because they didn't want to see my side. Like, that doesn't really help anybody. That really doesn't. And to go back to the point of like perception, a lot of people end up judging people for the characters that they play online, and not realize to think in a bigger sense that like they're doing this so that way they can actually get money off of people. That's called being a grifter. That's, you're basically swindling people into believing that you have their same beliefs, and that you and them check off all the check boxes, but they never give you anything of value, and they never challenge you. And then they sit home pretty with your money, and then you never see it again. And then you're like, wait a minute. You finally wake up and you're like, wait, this really wasn't how it's supposed to be. Where's the value in this? That's grifter, swindling you out of your money by manipulating you into like believing that you guys are of the same belief systems, when in reality you're not. But most people can't see that nowadays, because the internet has created this false sense of like, I need to be with the in crowd, with the sheep that could go to slaughter at like any moment of the time or any moment in the day. And then the person that does that, the shepherd that leads you there, will definitely be laughing and not giving a shit about who you are, versus people like myself and others in the community and just in general in life, who really do care about other people and that will help other people out, obviously to an extent, because everything in this world is to an extent. You can't really overexhaust yourself. If you overexhaust yourself, then like how are you going to help yourself in the end? But people like myself and others who will definitely want to hear you out, definitely want to give you some advice. And if it is some tough love, you gotta be like, yo, it's tough love. We can't keep coddling people. We can't keep being like, oh, let's just go along with this, because that's not helpful. That's not being healthy in no way, shape, or form. And it goes back to social media. Social media is not healthy. Social media, I use it because I'm building a business. I'm building it very, very slow. And sometimes it bothers me. But I do want to be very, very intentional with my Discord. I do want to be very intentional with the content that I put out if it's not going to be always wrestling based. Because again, how many times can I tell you guys, New Japan Pro Wrestling, what are you guys doing? How many times can I like really say the same things over and over and over and over again if nothing is going to get done, if nothing is going to get elevated, and those in charge don't give a shit and they just want to get money for their bottom dollar. Now, people do need money to run businesses. I totally get that. I totally do. I really respect that, because it's the same way of me growing my business, where I have merchandise, I have memberships, and you guys can all get that if you go to my, all of my links in my campsite bio, and to help me out that way. And I'll be very, very appreciative. So I get that. However, if you really want to succeed and adapt in the wrestling business, you have to adapt. You have to understand the markets. You have to understand how audiences are going to use their wallet, use their money, and what's hot, what's not hot. I was gonna make a comment about this, that it's kind of funny that after all these years, New Japan Pro Wrestling decided to be like, hey, we're gonna have an English podcast talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling product and bringing you guys up to speed about what to expect for the G1, who's in A block and B block, and what's the story here, what's the story there. Newsflash. There are podcasters like myself and others in the New Japan Pro Wrestling community that have been doing that for years. And then all of a sudden, when they get somebody new, they all of a sudden have a podcast, and it's like, I don't know. They're not late to the game, they really aren't, even though Japan is a little bit behind when it comes to certain things. But that's another time for another discussion sometime later. But it's still a little bit like, who listens to that podcast anyway? And I'm asking that genuinely, not even like a sly kind of way where it's like making fun of them. Like, I truly want to know who listens to that podcast, because in good faith and in good conscience, knowing and seeing that New Japan is like hanging on by their bones, like I would definitely be on everybody and be like, hey, this is what we could do, or maybe this is what we could do, or this is what can happen. Give different types of storylines of like, hey, we could go this route or that route, um, at this point, one of my followers is probably going to be like upset at me and like probably start throwing jokes at me. But, why not lean into making Evil that really top villain in New Japan Pro Wrestling if Tanahashi was so dead set on really breaking up Bullet Club and really breaking up that whole entire group, and he grouped them all in together, and I'm like, Tana, don't you just mean like Evil and House of Torture and not Bullet Club itself? Like, the fans don't complain about Bullet Club. They love Bullet Club. They complain about House of Torture because the shenanigans were just a little too much every single time. If the shenanigans were toned down a bit, then yes, the fans wouldn't really complain about it. But yeah, why not just lean into making Evil the top villain? Let Evil win the G1, even though people are gonna be like, "What the fuck, Marie?" Um, but if you really want to convince the audience that Evil is truly the top guy that runs things in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that Evil is evil for all puns intended, make him win the G1. Make him challenge Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP champion. Make him champion just for a little bit. And at the retirement match, it's Evil versus Tanahashi. unfortunately, it has to be what it is because it's a wrestling business. And let Tanahashi win the belt off of Evil to defeat Evil, because Tanahashi is the light and the hope of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, I believe that in my heart of hearts. And send them out that way. Let Evil do what he does best. And that's like annoy the shit out of people and like terrorize people in New Japan Pro Wrestling and all the wrestlers, and then all the wrestlers have to come together, and it'll be like a big ass Avengers Marvel movie that we can all enjoy, and that will make them so much money, and it will make them so much money in Japan as well. By the way, if you guys are not following Shohei, I totally forgot his last name, but he is on YouTube, and he's a very awesome content creator that talks about Japan and also does video games and stuff. And he was recently talking about how, because Japan is going to be voting for their next, I guess, I don't know, prime minister or president. Like, I really don't know, but like, it's Japanese politics. And there's this one person that's running for the popular um group. Um, I'm totally messing this up. The point what I'm trying to make is that one of the guys that he was showing had a very good policy, and that was to really help out all of the anime and manga creators in Japan and make them feel special and really give them all of the support that these artists need, because as we know, anime and manga are really, 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 really huge in Japan. And I'm very thankful that we have anime and manga. So I want them to get the best package available, where they get more money, where they get more freedom, and where they get more protection whenever they create their art. And because anime is like the very biggest thing in Japan, why is New Japan Pro Wrestling not utilizing the big storyboard feelings of when you watch an anime or you read a manga and you fall in love with it because of the complex characters and the storylines and whatnot, and just have Evil do anime shit. Have Tanahashi do anime shit. You have Yuya that looks like straight out of anime, and he's called Heatstorm. That's like so anime in itself. Let them utilize what makes Japan very, very unique, and that is the anime portion of it. So yes, have Evil win the G1, and then let him win the belt. Let Tanahashi win the belt, and then let David Finlay win the belt, and then David Finlay could go to WWE, because I'm still convinced, in my gut and in my heart, I don't know about my brain, but I am convinced that one day David Finlay will just go over to WWE. Obviously, I am not talking to anybody about that. That's just something that I want. Something that I think the world needs is David Finlay in WWE. Because again, New Japan Pro Wrestling, man, like, I don't know what they're doing. And speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, I did tell that to Kenta. I did tell Kenta during MLW when I met him that I use my platform to basically talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, talk about how they can help, well, how I can help them, and basically give ideas. And because I really don't like the way that they're treating Kenta. Even though I know Kenta is in Pro Wrestling Noah, and in his adorable Kenta way was like, hey, I'm in Noah, right? And I was like, yes, I know. I just don't have the funds to get the subscription to watch you and then talk about you in my community. But at least I let him know, and at least I let the whole world know that I still care about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now my brain is like, how do we get here? Well, Brain, we got here because I'm going to be jumping around on these topics and probably make a part two to this, because this is about a 20 minutes sort of rant about, being true to yourselves, and talking about communication and how to communicate effectively, social media, and how that just plays a role in everything that we do, and how it just like, to me, sort of suffocates the true nature of like networking sometimes, and the true nature of making friends, and the true nature of like division and stuff like that. I haven't even gotten to like how it divides. But yeah, we're gonna jump around a lot. Stay tuned for part two. And now part two of the Captain's Log 002 of the Discord voice notes. the only reason why we're jumping around and stuff and talking about different things with hopefully the overarching theme of like social media and stuff is because I do have a lot to say. I tend to observe a lot. If I need to comment and stuff, obviously you guys see it on Twitter. If you guys not following me on Twitter at Marie_Shadows, or I take it over to IG at your fave Marie Shadows, URFAV, and then Marie Shadows, all in one, word, for IG, and then, just talk about different things. But I did want to read out a post that I put on the Discord in the chat community where you guys can like chat about stuff. I don't know why I put an off-topic corner. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about things off topic. But yeah, no, it's there. But I wrote this on July 9th, 2025, at 12 in the afternoon, because sometimes I have to remind myself that showing up, even if it's just being like, hey guys, what's up in the Discord, or like doing these Discord voice notes, or, doing something on Instagram, even though I'm not 24/7 online, I should say live streaming, not really online, because it feels like I'm online 24/7. So what I should say is that because I'm not streaming 24/7, live streaming 24/7, doesn't mean that I'm not creating something or planning something in the background, because again, I really do want to just create with intention. And that's what I've learned. I've been doing this for 6 years, meaning the whole wrestling content creation for 6 years. I only slowed down once, and that was when it got a little too much, and I had to take a break. And I was just reviewing AEW, and I was when the rose colored glasses came off, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is not what was promised. Like, what are we doing here? Type of deal. And that's why people online on Twitter think that I'm anti AEW and playing the gimmick. And again, guys, if you don't know the meaning of words, I am going to start back up ringology. So, like, look out for that, where I get to explain what words mean in the wrestling business. But, if you tell me that I have an anti AEW gimmick, a gimmick is a character that someone plays that is not themselves in real life. So thankfully, I am Marie Shadows, and I could definitely play off of that character. So I'm playing a character, but that doesn't mean that I'm anti AEW when I'm giving criticism and ideas on how to improve AEW. But then again, these accounts don't want to listen to nobody else because they're going to be thinking like us soon, and they're going to be like, oh, AEW sucks now and I'm not going to watch it, and then there goes the numbers. But because they are so knee deep into it, they have to stay for the sake of staying. They cannot move, because once they move, then their whole world comes crashing down. Newsflash, guys, the world is way much bigger than AEW. Okay? But this is not going to be another wrestling rant. Let me read you what I wrote in the chat community in the discussion portion of the Discord, because I think that it needs to really, really be said for anyone that just suffers with, your mind getting at you and doubting everything that you've done just because others in the space, in any space, that does low effort reaction content or just low effort content basically gets more praise than having thoughtful conversations and elevate everybody. Try to at least elevate everybody and like the art form, and talking about things in a very, very, very reasonable, sometimes neutral, if I can help it. If I can't help it, then it has to be either or, then it has to be either or. But like the passionate side of like, we all have to come together, let's uplift, our favorite fandom, and let's talk about things in a way where we could do that, where it doesn't necessarily need to be, hey, look at this idiot. Okay. So this is what I wrote. And again, this is on July 9th, 2025. Out to run errands. I'll probably leave some voice notes later. Newsflash, I didn't do that day. This is why you guys are getting like maybe so many voice notes, because I have a lot of things in my head. I continue to write. I want to prove, says my brain first. I don't need to prove anything, but I guess it's the competitive side of me. Newsflash, I do have a competitive side to me. Sometimes I hate it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't think about it. But I do have a competitive side. I continue to write. but I don't want to show that. Oh, sorry, I totally messed that up. We're going to keep it going. But I do want to show that you can show up how you want and how you feel best about showing up as a content creator. Showing up means you're making content elsewhere or planning before releasing the content, or as simple as running a Discord where your community is present. It's the little things that can count as showing up too. All the things that people don't show you on social media, since social media is supposed to be clean looking. You can apply that to real life too. As long as you keep showing up for whatever it is, that's good enough. Let me just repeat that again. As long as you keep showing up for whatever it is, that's good enough. You can show up, people come by. Content creators get lost feeding the machine that is Twitch, YouTube, and a podcasting platform like Spotify and everything else. Create, oh, sorry. Create on the hamster wheel without intent or value to a degree. That causes burnout. It's a routine without fun after a while. And then I really did ended with this is definitely the first voice note I'll make when I get back. Again, I didn't do that. This is the voice note that you're getting now. And then I created some stuff on Instagram, but didn't get the chance to. So yeah, that is what I wanted to share because I think that sometimes we get into our heads as content creators just because we see what happens on social media. Social media moves so fast, and the people that we connect with, the community that we build, and the collaborators that we see, sometimes it feels like you might just be like standing still when you're not standing still. And this is just more into like my creator mind and how like I see things. Sometimes it feels like I'm standing still, even though I have this whole entire big back catalog of podcast episodes and interviews, and they're all free to listen to, while others around in this small little circle tend to get, more praise, tend to get more acceptance and more conversation and engagement and even money from like merchandise, super chats, live streaming, all this kind of stuff. And I get it that like I'm supposed to be on this hamster wheel to create things and whatnot. However, sometimes it's kind of hard to pick a time to be like, okay, I'm going to go live and hoping for everyone to come on by. But then again, you have to remember that like most people are at work. Sometimes, during the weekends, people are out. So you might not even get like your usuals, and they might watch it on the VOD. And then, I just really want people to comment. That's all I want. I just want people to comment, tell me what they think. And, I reply to everybody. Just don't be an asshole. That's all I ask. Don't be an asshole for the sake of being an asshole. It's a summer, and I understand that like most people are out. This month I have been deciding to like go out more to just walk and lose weight that way to walk and get some sun. And I definitely tanned. But it's just difficult to pick a time and whatnot, and then to use one laptop for content creation, for gaming and wrestling, and putting this stuff together. And while I could use my phone, that's not really ideal. So while that may sound like, a you problem, Marie, but that's a content creator thing. That's an equipment thing. And, that's just something I just wanted to bring to attention, because sometimes your brain just goes really, really crazy about like, you know, sometimes it doesn't feel like you get your flowers all the time. But, this is where this stuff here could be weaponized against me. Hell, a struggle meal got weaponized against me. And it's like, the fuck is wrong with people? But to bring awareness to the things that need upgrading is one thing. And then to remind yourself that like doing the little things also does help as a content creator. This is just the behind the scenes of like ups and downs and what happens. So since social media moves so fast, there are people that really show you a clean side of social media, and that's really really on like Instagram, because you can like manipulate photos, you can manipulate video, and that's not to say you can't put that in like anywhere else. You could always do that, but like it's always so clean of like, look at my setup, look at the cute little aesthetics, look at like all these lights and all these plushies and this and that, these frames and whatnot, and it's like an overconsumption of like, do you really need that? Like, is that really like what you need? Like, I am good with the I guess bare necessities and the bare basics of like when it comes to content creation, because like I'm not really doing anything that's like super hardcore on the machine. But then when you introduce like gaming content, that's a little more it takes a little bit more power to do that. And this laptop is like my whole world and everything. Even my phone is my whole world to create content. That's all I want to do is create content and be comfortable. It's not like I want to be a millionaire. I really don't. Like I've made up my mind. Like I just want to be comfortable. Like if you want to be comfortable, let me know down in the comments below. Like, um, because sometimes you learn that the bare minimum can sustain you more than like having an excess. Because then when you have an excess of something, you tend to not know what to do with it, and then you get in trouble because you're just like, I have it all. Like, what else can I do? But yeah, I don't know where this voice note was going to. But yeah, I wanted to read that since because I did feel some type of way that like sometimes, if you're a content creator, you could just show up um, when you can, how you can, as long as you keep the same fundamentals, the same like, beliefs and convictions and, say the same things over and over again that you believe in and don't really like pivot from it just because it's going to please the other side of the crowd, you should be fine. Marie should be fine. Because I think that last part was for me. Because that was, yeah, that's definitely for me. But yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about in part three. I think part three was more about like, um, you know, some other stuff, but like just social media in general. Like, oh, I guess part three we could talk about like why social media and the algorithm like loves negativity, while like thoughtful conversations and building intentionally doesn't. So yeah, we should do that. That'll be the third one, and I think I'll wrap it up. But I do appreciate people listening to the second voice note. Again, these are just like life advice and things that I think about, things that go into the creator headspace of me, because I don't have anyone here to like co-host, but like the creator headspace of like where I'm at. I was gonna be like where you're at. Definitely not you, but where I'm at. But yeah, stay tuned for part three. Okay, part three in the Discord voice notes for, this is a long part two. Um, let's talk about the stupidity of the algorithm because I am just fed up with the algorithm. So content creators tend to make like a Discord or like have another type, maybe like a Patreon or like a fourth wall or somewhere else where they can have their community in. So like a locals account too, which is also like a Patreon and stuff. They can have a Ko-fi as well, but mostly everybody has a Discord. If I had enough money, um, and if people really did, try to donate on Twitter, I would have made a Twitter community. Just because like Twitter is like the main hub. That's like my main go-to social media platform. If people would have like helped me out with at least a yearly subscription to Twitter Blue, I would have created a community there. But then I was just like, it's probably not worth it. Um, so I went back with a Discord to build intentionally and build slow and love the process and not have assholes come into the Discord. But let's talk about the algorithm for a second because um, Twitter and all the rest of the other algorithms. So like think of like Facebook and Reddit. Reddit is in their own like destructive bubble. So let's, maybe one day I'll talk about, the New Japan Reddit, and how like I no longer post there. But I do tend to peep in from time to time. Anyway, so things like Facebook and like Twitter, probably like Instagram. I haven't really explored too much about Instagram and the algorithm, but it's pretty much the same thing in a way. Whenever something major happens in life and people continue to talk about it, the algorithm will pick it up because that is the most viral thing ever. You have to understand that the algorithm is created by people who code this stuff, and that might sound kind of like, oh yeah, that's common sense. Think about it like, pre, I can't say pre AI. I was going to be like, it has to be AI. Algorithms tend to curate what is popular, what is trending, what is on fire, and I really do think that does a very bad disservice to everybody around the world, because a disservice in a way of that, like, it can either you know, you could look at it and your brain could be like, I agree with this or I don't agree with this. And if you see other people interacting with it, where like if you chose the side of I don't agree with this and you see the majority of people agreeing with whatever the hell they're showing you, you're going to be mad at that group of people. And then think about it the other way too, whereas like if you agree with it and you see the majority of people not agreeing with it, you're going to think that they're stupid. So it serves as a divisiveness to show hot things. And sometimes it's so manipulative where it's like it's a 20-second clip out of like a minute long or a 2 minute long conversation where there's more context. The internet has really ruined how we understand um context, how we understand definitions, how we understand words. And like just because someone doesn't agree with you, it's all like, I'm using this word. This word now universally means that I don't agree with you, when it's like, do you not want to agree to disagree? We could probably find some other common ground and whatnot. So the algorithm, specifically speaking for like, the wrestling community, it's all about engagement farming. And we know this. We say this every time, like every single month we have this conversation, whether it's like, whoever starts it off first, but we have this conversation about, do not engage. Guys, this is how you can tell it's bait, it's engagement, it's farming. We have this conversation, but people still do it. Bots come in and out and they keep the conversation going. And no matter how many times we're like, hey, don't interact, people still interact because by nature we are creatures of habit. We like the drama, we like being in a loop, we like the whole decisiveness. When people are like, we don't need that in the wrestling community, especially when it comes to like the 18-year-olds to like mid 25-year-olds, if they are real people. And these are the activists that come in and they are, they're on activist duty 24/7 when it comes to professional wrestling. And it's like, you guys got to go. And I only say that because it doesn't make wrestling fun. It makes wrestling more tribalism, more divisive, because you want insert race here to be over somebody else. And it's like, that's not how that should go. It should go based on talent and merit. And while, yes, there's a conversation for maybe a little bit of race, like, not everything has to be looked through that lens. Because if you say that we are all human beings and you care about human rights and human beings, you shouldn't be looking at somebody based on what color their skin is. You should be looking at them as a human being, but also understand that there are laws and there are, um, you know, an exception to every law. There's an exception to everything that we do. And in wrestling, it is supposed to be entertainment. Imagine doing this if you go to a theater and you go to like a play and you do this with the actors that are on Broadway or off Broadway, and you're an activist 24/7, and you're like, no, that's offensive. Why are you playing that character? If that actor or actresses can land the role and basically convince you that they are Jane Doe, there shouldn't be a problem. Because back in the 90s, when we had really amazing action movies and really amazing movies that took risk and like, things that probably wasn't normally accepted by having, you know, black cops being played in, like, you know, as a sheriff or as a deputy or, you know, as a commander and stuff like that, because I don't think that was like really like really huge normalized back then. Like, you know, people were starting to be like, yeah, they could be in those roles. They could even be like that in real life. That could be their real job, you know. You know, the idea of taking risk, and we all celebrated the fact that this actor or actress convinced us of the role. The only reason why I'm bringing this up, and sometimes it's a little difficult to talk about it because everyone is going to get very emotional. Everyone is going to be like emotionally maybe responding to this. But like, if you look at it objectively, it should be like, oh, we're here to be entertained by the wrestlers, by the stories. One big example is, you know, El Grande Americano. Obviously, I have to break kayfabe. We all know that El Grande Americano is Chad Gable. We know that. But I love the story so much that, like, in kayfabe, he's not. And then we have, you know, we have Kaiser coming in to just take the mantle because Chad Gable is injured and is recovering. And I thought that was a very interesting way to do it. And it was kind of funny, and it still is funny. It's not meant to disrespect the Mexican community or the lucha libre community, because most of you guys don't even know that even white people end up putting on a mask and they be called a luchador. And then when I look at them, I'm like, that's a white guy that's wrestling as a luchador because he doesn't move like a luchador. So they just put a mask on him to just keep tradition. Like, it happens all the time. So my whole thing is that the algorithm shows us things to get us upset, shows us things to divide us, and even limits the context. And people just read headlines nowadays. People just watch a 20-second to maybe a minute clip and then be like, I'm going to be so upset at this. And then it's like, do you really believe this? No, you really don't believe this. You know, they're telling you to believe this. And then when someone is like, hey, you know, this is what actually happened, you guys don't want to hear it. You know, I just don't like how the algorithm tends to show us things that make us upset versus the stuff that we should be applauding, the stuff that we should be like, we got to show up more to be as a good human like that, to help out people, to not like really, um, you know, I don't want to say judge them more than like, you know, we judge them. But yeah, like, I know this one's going all over the place, and then my brain is like, I might be crossing into other territories, but it's just one of those things of like, the algorithm tends to pick up on things that get the most engagement, on things that could be perceived as like a stupid tweet, because you know what you think is a stupid tweet, I might not think is a stupid tweet, and vice versa. You know, the algorithm wants the negativity, and people feed into the negativity, and then it becomes a vicious cycle of arguments and blocking and name calling, and you know, this person's stupid, that person's stupid. And then when I read some of these threads, I'm like, none of these comments make sense. None of, like, the back and forth conversations don't make sense. And sometimes the algorithm does not want to push thoughtful content and conversations that can elevate. And I try so hard to like make threads where we can like have thoughtful conversations in wrestling. And I don't know if it actually has happened. Maybe it has, and I just can't really think about it. But like, sometimes I'll have a good conversation with, you know, some person and it'll be great. But the algorithm, once it sees negativity, clowning, and like tribalism, you know, those things get rewarded, and it's all about engagement. It's not about value. There's some stuff that gets buried when it is about value and like looking at things a different way and evaluating things a different way. But we have cultivated so much of people being so emotionally, you know, not regulated because they can't control their emotions, that all they do is basically come from an emotional standpoint and just a projection standpoint when you just say something that's common sense or when you just say something that's very, very innocent. For example, to bring it back to one of the podcast episodes that I did about, the Twitter drama that um, people took my comment about MOW to save New Japan Pro Wrestling as so out of context that it was like, bro, what are we doing? Why are we taking a simple, innocent comment so out of context? I don't get it. So the more that you dunk on people, the more that you are mean to people, all that shit goes into the algorithm, and then the algorithm shows it to you on your timeline, and then you respond to it, everyone responds to it, and it's a never ending cycle. And if you ever wonder why the wrestling space doesn't get any better, is because we still allow this shit to happen, because again, we are creatures of habit. And it's kind of, sad that I was reading this thread about how we should just ignore uh, Metzler. We should just ignore him because nothing that we do or say or even show his faults, he's not going to change. And that goes for all of the bloggers, all of the podcasters, all the quote unquote wrestling journalists out there in the space that no matter how much you show, whether on a live stream, on a video, on in a Twitter space, no matter how much you show, these people acting a fool, they're not going to change. They think that they run the wrestling Twitter space. They think that they run Twitter. They think that they run the internet, but they don't really run anything because they never knew how to run something. And if they did run something, it would just be gatekeeping. They know how to gatekeep because probably when they were growing up, they were probably bullied and get kept from certain things and, made fun of and stuff like that. So the internet is easy to turn that around. If you were a loser and a nerd growing up in the 80s and the 90s and maybe in the 2000s and you survived and you came onto the internet, now it's your chance to turn the tables and be exactly what you claim that you don't want to be. But that's exactly what you do to other people in the space. You bully them, you talk shit about them. You don't want to get to know them from a conversational standpoint when most people will have that conversation with you. But the moment that you start being an asshole, the moment that you start being passive aggressive, the moment that you start disregarding what they say, basically people who are from the UK that are in the wrestling space, sometimes you guys do that so much. And I don't care if I get heat for that. You guys disregard what Americans say all the time, but then try to act like, oh, I think I could understand where you guys are coming from. No, stop it. And, always want to use some type of medical illness to be like, oh, I have this, so you can't talk to me the way that you do. It's like, you guys can't keep hiding behind shields, but this is the internet. The internet has created a big ass shield where people who were once losers and nerds are now turned into the popular king and queen of the high school brigade. And this is all coming from my damn heart. This is all I guess a rant. I don't know. But this is what the algorithm does, and this is how much negativity is out there. This is how much divisiveness is out there where you're looking on Twitter and you're scrolling and you're like, man, how did you survive? In a way, Twitter doesn't really put in front of people thoughtful consistency, thoughtful conversations. This is why, I created the Discord. This is why I'm creating CrossRoads Editorial and CrossRoads Interview, where we can have honest conversations about, whatever the topic is. CrossRoads Editorial is more about think pieces. That's how I'm going to be describing them from now on. They are think pieces, think essays of different topics that won't be on the Square Circle podcast, because the Square Circle podcast is all about professional wrestling. If something interests me in professional wrestling, I will make a professional wrestling video podcast and put it on the Square Circle podcast. But right now it's taking a nap. Okay, it's taking a nap. So CrossRoads Editorial it is, and The first episode is definitely going to be about Nickelback and like the documentary, and I'm going to do a review on it. And the second episode, I'm planning for it to be about AEW. And if you want to leave me a voice note about like AEW, because it's more about how I think that if they would have kept with the vlogs to help with AEW, like that would have set them apart from everything else. Their vlogging style, their storytelling style, that was a true alternative in a much needed, I guess, absorption, absorption, absorption of like content, you know. So that's the second episode. Thinking about the true alternative of AEW was the vlogs. But yeah, now here is the question, I guess, that I always ask myself, or what I think about when it comes to the Twitter algorithm. So logging out of logging out of Twitter has been very beneficial in a very mental way. And when you log out of Twitter, the world tends to open up, and you realize that no one cares about you online. And that's not a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I'm just giving you an observation of like what I felt when I logged out of Twitter like twice. And logging out of Twitter is so beneficial as a content creator, because it allows you to do more work. It allows you to just go outside and just, talk with people, mingle with people, talk to your damn neighbors. Not saying that like I didn't do that on the constant, but like, it just brings you back to reality. And then when you get back on Twitter, no one really asks about you. No one really knows that you were gone, because it's going to be the same old shit, the same old drama, the same he said, she said bullshit, and you guys are still going to feed the algorithm, and then you complain about the things that you see, when I'm like, you could block, mute, and go, and you don't have to worry about a thing, even though sometimes that doesn't always, stay true, but for the majority it stays true. Twitter, it's beneficial to build your community, stay with the fundamentals, stay focused, stay consistent, and always preach what you are about from the bottom of your heart. Most people want to play a character, most people want to talk shit, most people want to make you upset, but it's like, what does that really gain if we're not elevating each other? Why do you want to make other people upset? Because you want to laugh, you want to be like, ha ha ha, but then turn around and be like, I was bullied when I was in high school. Why are you bullying me? Because you said some shit. So now, it's fuck around and find out kind of deal. If you don't want to be the thing that gave you quote unquote trauma when you were growing up, don't do that online. Have some respect, have some morals. Just don't be a 24/7 activist, because that shit is so exhausting and so annoying. Like, nobody wants to be preached at. That's also another thing that Twitter does. It's show a lot of preachiness from the IWC, a lot of preachiness. And it's like, you guys need to go somewhere else, man. Like, stop preaching and stop lecturing, because you're not going to take your own advice. If you guys took your own advice, then, like, yeah, cool. More power to you. And you can actually see some change. If you really do want to see some change, you got to really work at it. You can't just say words or type words or make a video and then not do anything and sit in your house waiting for the engagement to come through to be like, see, I did something. No, you sat on your ass just to further divide Twitter, just to further divide the community. And it's like, it's not helping anything at all, So, trust me, there's more to life than just being a 24/7 activist. You could be an activist for like the stuff you're passionate about, but to try to be an activist for everything, no, that's not how the world works. And then you're going to get burned out. And then you're going to be like, how do I recover? And it's like, well, you should never burned out that way. The human body can only take but so much stress. And when you put your body under so much stress, that's how you end up getting like actual medical ailments, because your body is so under stress and you don't really know how to deal with it. And it's because of the content that you consume. So if you enjoy other things, I'll wrap this up in the next one. I think it cut me off because I went too far. But yeah, just to wrap it up, that like, the more energy you spent on things that you are not passionate about truly, right? And then you go and spend your energy on things that social media and media in general tells you what to be fighting for, your body is really going to reject it later on. All I'm saying is that the Twitter algorithm and Facebook algorithm really rewards anything that is negative, anything that is trauma, anything that is divisive, anything that is sad, sometimes maybe happy, but not even that. And I only bring it up because it's really annoying to see people in the same loop. And there are just mutuals out there on Twitter that I know that, respond to all the bots that end up saying stuff. And it's like, if you ignore them, they're gonna go away. Um, hopefully. But sometimes you got to pick and choose like who you want to get into an argument with and not get into an argument with. But yeah, these are just like four really long voice notes. I hope that in each voice note I made sense in what I've presented and what I'm talking about. These Discord voice notes are just off the top of my head. There is no script, there is an idea of like what I want to talk about and what I, absorbed. Now I can say the word right. What I absorbed, or observed, if I want to say that, on Twitter and like anywhere else. But these are just from the heart. These are just advice columns and voice notes, and these help me get out the doubts of, not even like thinking about like why am I creating, but just get out the doubts and give people a bit of motivation, because it does get tiring to see, mutuals feed the Twitter algorithm with all the negativity and like all the clowning and saying that this person's an idiot, you're an idiot. This is like, clockwork and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, even if you announce to somebody that they're stupid or they're an idiot, that doesn't mean that they're going to change their mind. It's really not going to happen. Even if you show them all of the evidence, it's not going to happen. It's the internet. No one really cares. If they really did care, they will start changing. We'll start seeing a different type of algorithm. We'll start seeing more people trying to be like, let's agree to disagree because I didn't like that part, or after the agree to disagreement, they're like, oh hey, I can agree with you on this, XYZ situation or whatever it is. But most people just want to argue, and then most people want to be like trolls and be like, oh, it's a joke, guys, it's a joke. It can get very exhausting, so I just watch from the sidelines. Just to wrap up these four notes, because I did go a little too long on the other one, because I guess this is like a rant of everything that I kept inside. Social media is always going to divide us. When you leave social media to go outside into the world, that's very, very, very bigger. You really don't care about Twitter and what people are fighting about, because Twitter is like so small that if you go out to the real world and ask them about Twitter, they're not really going to know too much about like the wrestling space. Um, and I guess I just wanted to talk about the algorithm in general because I think it was just getting to me. Even though yesterday was a very good day, yesterday was SmackDown, and for some reason I was really happy that not I guess happy, excited and curious about what Jelly Roll was gonna do. Because again, I went down a country rabbit hole. So that's why I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me tune in to SmackDown to see Jelly Roll and see what he's gonna do. And then people, just don't like it, and then other people liked it. And then I got some flowers from people in the IWC, like Big Bad Kaiju, because I tagged him and I was like, hey, he could be a potential wrestler to face Matt Riddle, and telling me that I know ball, and I'm like, I appreciate that. And then I want to give a shout out to Kev. Um, let me hold on. I have to go into my Substack. It's Kev. Um, he has at the ring post, and he's on Substack. So I follow him, and he wrote a newsletter that said the IWC's reputation problem: loud, divisive, and profiting off of chaos. So these four voice notes is a combination of his newsletter and then everything that I've been seeing and the writing that I've been seeing on the wall, man. Like I can see the writing on the wall, and that's why I'm pivoting in my content to do different types of content, but still have the same overarching theme of still being analytical, having think pieces, think essays, whatever you want to like call them, even though I'm calling them think pieces, but like analytical think pieces, and also like reviewing wrestling and having that passion, having that breakdown, just with different topics of like what I want to dive into that like you might not have thought about this perspective of this topic in this way. Because the way that WWE is now framing, I guess framing is the right word, of like who they're working with. They're doing a lot more stuff in house. They're not really having the influencers really come in like that. But they're doing a lot of in-house stuff with a lot of in-house people. And so I'm like, okay, well then I don't want to compete against other people that are still doing WWE stuff. So let me stay within wrestling, but then also branch out just a tiny bit of different topics and use the wrestling lens to sort of talk about them in a different perspective. That's essentially what I'm doing. But Kev over here, man, I just want to read this and put it in a voice note and let the whole world know. So Kev wrote about the IWC reputation problem, and then also talked about some accounts that let me get the wording right. Um, Kev is shining a light on authentic voices. And that is all I strive for. I strive for having an authentic voice. That's all I do. That's all I want. So this is what Kev wrote about me, and it's something that like I needed to hear today. So I'm gonna end this with Kev's newsletter. Make sure to sign up to his newsletter. When I put this all together, I will drop the link to his newsletter in the Discord and also online everywhere else. But this is what he wrote about me. Marie stands out for her deep dives into psychology and storytelling. She's respected for her thoughtful, promotion neutral takes, avoiding the rumor mill or tribalism. She elevates discourse, not drama, making her a go-to for fans seeking substance over sensationalism. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I'm going to end this on. Again, I hope that all four voice notes made sense. If not, you guys could talk about it in the voice notes reply section. But sometimes I do get into my head way too much. And that's because I'm always like, I need to create to at least get some type of income. And that's me being like very, very honest. But I create because I know I can make different content from what you're usually seeing on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch. Because while that is a very easy route to go, I've never been the one, hey, let's take the easy route. I'm always like, hey, let's take the challenging one and let's see what happens. I really do like creating nothing out of something, or something out of nothing. Yeah, it's something out of nothing. I just I just like creating different things, and sometimes I feel like it's not going to hit because it's not what people are going for. It's not the trend that people are going for. But I've never followed trends. I've always wanted to beat on my own drum. Like getting into WWE, like if you think about it from like a window perspective, right? That window was so tiny. And I told everybody at the top of my lungs that I will make it to WWE because that was my 7-year-old dream. And what the fuck did I do in 2018? I jumped through that window that was so fucking tiny and I made it to WWE. It was not what I wanted when I went in there, but it was something. I got my foot in the door to work on the WWE network. And now people are thanking me for that after like we're not having the WWE network anymore. But it's just the idea of that, like when you go and shoot for your passions, you know, it may not land exactly where you wanted, but at least you went to go do it. And most people go and do that. But yes, I do pride myself on like, substance, giving you guys substance over sensationalism because I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes I'm here to tell you things that you don't want to hear and break it down as to like, this is why it's X, Y, and Z, especially when I talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling and break down like why this is this. I do have some biases, but for the most part, I give you guys substance. I do not care for rumor mills or the tribalism. I really don't, because it's fucking stupid. It really is. Why do we have rumor mills? Like, why are you trying to ruin somebody with a rumor mill and don't even go back on your word and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. My source got it wrong or whatever it is. Like, rumor mills are fucking stupid. Tribalism is stupid to an extent. I just don't want 24/7 activists in wrestling. I don't want them. That's the only thing that I would be like, we got to gatekeep from them, because activism destroys entertainment, and we're seeing that currently right now in the world. Your activism destroys entertainment because sometimes we just want to enjoy something stupid. You had a long day at work, 8 hours. Your boss might have yelled at you, and you want to go back online for people to lecture you about stupid shit, about the entertainment that you want to watch, and clown on you if you enjoy the Jelly Roll segment on Friday Night SmackDown yesterday, 7/11/2025. Like, why? you know so that's the only thing that I would like gatekeep, is like people who do activism 24/7 in wrestling. Like, no, sometimes I want to enjoy stupid things in wrestling that does not include death matches. Okay, and death matches too. Death matches could get out of wrestling. That could get out of wrestling. If we want to get controversial here, even though this is the last voice note, intergender wrestling matches I'm not too strong about. I understand that we could have intergender wrestling matches where it's a man versus a woman in wrestling. I totally get it. But it's not like a go-to thing for me. If it's on a card, it's on a card. I don't really care, because they're both professional wrestlers. It's supposed to be professional. The moment that it doesn't become professional, then I'll say something. But I am really suspending my disbelief that like it's going to be treated as a professional wrestling match where both people are professional. But intergender wrestling matches, I really don't care. I don't have a strong position about it unless it gets like shoot level brutality. Then I'm like, bro, no, we're not doing that shit. But if it's just a regular match, sure. But yeah, um, I try to be very thoughtful, and I love doing my deep dives into psychology and storytelling, and that's what's going to be happening when I finally sit down to like talk about stuff in the Crossroads editorial think pieces and Crossroads interviews. And man, I just have so many big ideas, so many big dreams, and sometimes my brain just gets the best of me to like put me in stuck mode, in like freeze mode, and like do just say a bunch of shit. It's like, brain, I need you to shut off for a second. But sometimes that can happen. That cannot happen, because I really want to be the best at this, whatever it is, because I really do love this so, so, so much. I do. I love this so much. I love my community so much. Sometimes I think that like when everything goes quiet, that's a bad thing. This is what happens when you're in wrestling like 24/7. You gotta hear something from the crowd. Like, guys, give me a round of applause. And my laptop is about to die. But yeah, guys, give me a round of applause. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys on the next voice notes. Thank you so much for listening to these 4 voice notes. See ya.